Hello and welcome to the SciFirst MovieTalk episode. So in this episode, I'll be discussing the 2001 cheerleading comedy bank heist movie Sugar and Spice, as directed by Francine McDougall. The movie finds us following a squad of cheerleaders at Lincoln High School, a tight-knit bunch, each with their own kind of quirks and individual talents. However, when the team's captain, Diane Weston, as played by Marley Shelton, falls pregnant to high school heartthrob John Bartlett, as played by James Marsden, and then subsequently find themselves fending for themselves, having been kicked out of their home by their parents, Diane and the rest of the team turn to a life of crime in order to turn their fortunes around and get themselves the best start in life. Hatching a plan to rob the local supermarket bank kiosk, the team set to then glean ideas from popular culture and movies, seeking advice from the local criminal underground, only to find that perhaps robbing a bank on a budget might not be all that too easy, as they as they would have kind of hoped or are led to believe. Together, they embark on their life of crime, thinking that they have all of their bases covered. That is until they underestimate the cheerleading B squad leader, Lisa Janesk, as played by Maria Sokoloff, who has her sights on becoming head cheerleader of the A squad, and soon their plan doesn't seem to be all that foolproof. So, Sugar and Spice is one of those kind of mediocre-sized teen comedies of the early 2000s that kind of does a decent job at entertaining its audience while kind of never stepping really too far outside of its bounds. Playing a good game for what it brings to the table, yet never really feeling much more than that. It's alright for a few giggles. It's a nice, light, breezy story with quite a kind of decent cast, leaning on a kind of a number of standard high school stereotypes. Leaning on that kind of bring it on kind of craze that they had for cheerleading movies round about that time. This actually opts to kind of minimise on the actual cheers themselves and kind of making it more about the squad and the characters we meet along the way, with varying results. I would like to say that it's a bit of a harmless kind of preppy fun, and for the most part it does kind of succeed in this. However, it is also certainly kind of product of its time, and there are a number of slurs, particularly aimed at homophobia, that kind of creep in through for some reason. Somewhat kind of mean-spirited and unnecessary, I might add. Not really kind of in keeping with the more kind of inclusive and upbeat tones of the movie. But sideline this, and the film does have a pretty fun premise that does kind of delivers quite a kind of sweet outing for its characters that, okay, doesn't quite show the reality of teen pregnancies, or crime for that matter of fact, but it is quite a fun ride that really doesn't care. It's actually nice not to kind of get bogged down in all the downbeat drama for a change, you know? I'm a realist. I know what the real world is like for the most part, and for most of us who find ourselves in similar situations. But sometimes you just have to let go and have a laugh at life, you know? Try to see the brighter side of an otherwise darker situation, and this film does that succinctly. Potentially you'll find it a lot funnier than you might actually give it credit for. The idea of getting robbed by a bunch of ganged up Betty dolls is about as hilarious as a bunch of ex-presidents doing the same. Okay, so there are serious undertones to the crime, but this isn't meant to be taken too seriously. In fact, this movie knows what it is. It plays very much on its stupidity and never really seeks to kind of step outside of those bounds. It's a ditzy movie for sure, with a more kind of snide undertone at times. Certainly in the vein of kind of 1985's Clueless. In fact, this is pretty much Clueless meets 1991's Point Break. And whilst not quite as iconic as either of those two movies, its cast still bring it on and manage to kind of twirl up some gutsy and clever one-liners. For me, I do find that there are so many kind of great cast members and characters in this that many don't get the time or look in that they deserved. Some criminally so and underused, if I'm honest. Each of the characters is affectionately played out, but there are a few, they were capable of so much more than they kind of could give in the few moments that they had here. But overall, it is a cool ensemble for sure that certainly keeps things kind of flirty and fun throughout. Unfortunately, by the time we've kind of set everything up for the robbery, given the film's pretty short runtime, the actual crime itself, it just almost ends up as kind of a backstory when it finally does arrive. And then the film is pretty much kind of finished swiftly thereafter, it's kind of booted out. The twists and the turns up to that point seem to merely give way to kind of a rushed need to round everything off, with everything else at that point feeling very shoehorned, to be quite fair. But the lead up to the crime is where the main focus of the movie is, and it does it well, integrating a number of brilliantly placed references to some iconic movies, I must say, and other pop culture that actually bring more than their fair share of nostalgia and comedy. As the twists and turns do develop in this, and the girls' plan starts to kind of come together, the movie does have a great fun in bringing all of the irreverent ideas and humour together. Overall, this movie would certainly fit quite well at a sleepover, I'm sure. It's certainly of that ilk. It would make a great contrasting double bill with Point Break, for sure. It has a weirdly kind of satisfying, self-proclaimed, non-stop, kind of cheery optimism that's pretty hard to dismiss. A cute movie with light breezy story that harbours a little bit of a darker edge, sometimes even a meaner streak. Some of it doesn't sit as well as it should or could. Some of it is uncalled for, which is weird given just how kind of camp the movie actually is. But that's just it. It does end up being surprisingly quite the fun movie overall. It might make light of crime. Its message on teen pregnancy is surprisingly upbeat. But that is all part of the fun and the escapism from the dreary dredge of the same old drum being beaten. It's just a preppy, bubbly crime caper that leans on a number of fantastically iconic heist movies without really asking too much in return. So, that brings me to the end of this episode. Many thanks for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please leave a like. Please do hit that subscribe button for more movie reviews, trailer reactions and other movie related content. Absolutely loved having you at SciFirst MovieTalk and definitely love to have you back. Most of all, just thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.